privilege to be able to preach and share God's word this morning. Um, today's message is from Job 6 and 7, and it's Job's first response to one of his friends or wise men or whatever you want to call them that may or may not be what they were actually doing. But it is his first response, and so if you would just join me, starting in Job 6. Then Job answered and said, "Oh, that my vexation were weighed, and all my calamity laid in the balances, for then it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words have been rash, for the arrows of the Almighty are in me. My spirit drinks their poison. The terrors of God are arrayed against me. Does the wild donkey bray when he has grass, or the ox low over his fodder? Can that which is tasteless be eaten without salt? Or is there any taste in the juice of the mallow? My appetite refuses to touch them. They are as food that is loathsome to me. Oh, that I might have my request, and that God would fulfill my hope, that it would please God to crush me. Then he would let loose his hand and cut me off. This would be my comfort. I would even exult in pain unsparing, for I have not denied the words of the Holy One. What is my strength that I should wait? And what is my end that I should be patient? Is my strength the strength of stones, or is my flesh bronze? Have I any help in me when resource is driven from me? He who withholds kindness from a friend forsakes the fear of the Almighty. My brothers are treacherous as a torrent bed, as torrential streams that pass away, which are dark with ice, and where the snow hides itself. When they melt, they disappear. When it is hot, they vanish from their place. The caravans turn aside from their course. They go up into the waste and perish. The caravans of Tema look, the travelers of Sheba hope. They are ashamed because they were confident. They come there and are disappointed. For you have now become nothing. You see my calamity and are afraid. Have I said, make me a gift, or from your wealth offer a bribe for me, or deliver me from the adversary's hand, or redeem me from the hand of the ruthless? Teach me, and I will be silent. Make me understand how I have gone astray. How forceful are upright words. But what does reproof from you reprove? Do you think that you can reprove words when the speech of a despairing man is wind? You would even cast lots over the fatherless and bargain over your friend. But now be pleased to look at me, for I will not lie to your face. Please turn, let no injustice be done. Turn now, my vindication is at stake. Is there any injustice on my tongue? Cannot my palate discern the cause of calamity? Has not man a hard service on earth? And are not his days like the days of a hired hand? Like a slave who longs for the shadow, and like a hired hand who looks for his wages? So I am allotted months of emptiness, and nights of misery are apportioned to me. When I lie down, I say, when shall I arise? But the night is long, and I am full of tossing till the dawn. My flesh is clothed with worms and dirt. My skin hardens, then breaks out afresh. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and come to their end without hope. Remember that my life is a breath. My eye will never again see good. The eye of him who sees me will behold me no more. While your eyes are on me, I shall be gone. As the cloud fades and vanishes, so he who goes down to Sheol does not come up. He returns no more to his house, nor does his place know him any more. Therefore I will not restrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I the sea or a sea monster that you set a guard over me? When I say my bed will comfort me, my couch will ease my complaint, then you scare me with dreams and terrify me with visions, so that I would choose strangling and death rather than my bones. I loathe my life. I would not live forever. Leave me alone, for my days are a breath. What is man that you make so much of him, and that you set your heart on him, visit him every morning, and test him every moment? How long will you not look away from me, nor leave me alone till I swallow my spit? If I sin, what do I do to you, you watcher of mankind? Why have you made me your mark? Why have I become a burden to you? Why do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? For now I shall lie in the earth. You will seek me, but I shall not be. This is the word of the Lord. Heavenly Father, I pray that this morning as we look at these words of Job, these words of yours, of your word, that you would reveal to us the openness that you have towards being questioned, and also the respect and that we should have when speaking to you, and the authority that you have, the sovereignty that you have in all things, no matter what is going on in our lives, be they wonderful things, amazing, glorious things, or terrible, despairing, hard things, that you are absolutely sovereign in all those situations. And I just pray that you would reveal your truth to us this morning through these words. Amen. So, before going into this a little bit, I do want to back up real briefly just to some of what happened in the previous chapter, as Alex Galenzi shared with us last week, and Eliphaz, Job's friend, and a wise friend, a man full of wisdom. An older man who was experienced. He had been through lots and lots of things, and so his words would be very valuable. And just some of the things he was saying to Job after buttering him up, I was really struck by Job 5:2-4, as he's talking to Job about this. And this is 7 days after all of these horrible things are happening, as his livelihood has been taken away, his livestock is gone, his children have all died, and his wife is telling him to curse God and die, and now he has been suffering for a week with these boils that he's just scraping off with a sharp piece of pottery. And there was mourning and silence for 7 days, and that was great. And then these are the first words that a wise man speaks. And so in Job 5, verse 2, Eliphaz says, "Surely vexation kills the fool, and jealousy slays the simple. I have seen the fool taking root, but suddenly I cursed his dwelling. His children are far from safety. They are crushed in the gate, and there is no one to deliver them." So this wise friend of Job's, after all the suffering that he's been through in 7 days of mourning, decides to speak up and talk to him. And he calls him a fool, and not too subtly accuses him of his children's death, that he is a fool and his children are far from safety. They are crushed in the gate. He's blaming all of these things on Job for his foolishness. And so I just want to be thinking about that today as we hear Job's response, because it will be kind of harsh, and he's going to say some things that, like they could be said in a more loving way, but the position that he is in right now and what he has just heard from a respected, wise friend, the things he heard are just really striking. And so we think about that as we go into Job's response. And so the first thing right away in verse 3, he does say that my words have been rash. And as he was speaking before and lamenting, like, maybe some of the stuff he is saying is rash, but there is reason behind it. And so he will admit to that at least, but he's not going to take back any of them. He's not going to, he very much says my words were rash. He does not say my words were wrong. He is not saying that anything he said is incorrect, or saying that anything that Eliphaz says is right, and he's apologizing for, oh yeah, you're right, wise friend. This is it. He's not doing that. He's just admitting that the words were rash, and that is it. And so he goes in and he laments some more. He doesn't respond to Eliphaz so much as continues in this lament about why he is doing what he's doing. He says, does the donkey bray when he has grass? If things were fair and things were just and he were getting what he believes to be what he deserves based on his actions, he wouldn't be lamenting all this stuff. He wouldn't be saying this. Even if he had been really, really sinful and had deserved everything that was coming to him, he wouldn't be saying all these things. But he is going to continue because he is not seeing himself as being punished for his actions, because his actions have been upright. And I mean, God said it numerous times talking to Satan. Job is upright and blameless. And so he doesn't have these things that he needs to be, these specific actions that have brought on this calamity. And Job knows that, but he can't convince these friends of it. And so he's mourning and he's lamenting why all of this stuff is happening to him. And he turns kind of to a little bit of God as his adversary. He says, the arrows of the Almighty are in me. And one thing about this and about the next, 30 some chapters we're going to do, it's very difficult things that are being said. I mean, there are harsh things being said, there's sad, lamenting things that are being said, but the way it is all said, it is beautiful poetry. I mean, this is not a kid's storybook where where it goes from here's what happened and here's the consequence and here's the happen, like a story form. It is poetry, and so much of this is just very visual. And so I'm thinking of Job accusing God of turning towards him and talking about the arrows of the Almighty are in me, and not that he's been struck with an arrow, but that he is literally sitting there in front of his friends, and there is an arrow, a righteous arrow that is still in him, and so of course he's still suffering from this, and he sees these things are upon him right now. But then as he's saying some of this, and he starts turning his attention towards God, and particularly towards God as his adversary, and he gets away from just defending himself, from saying, no, Eliphaz, you're wrong. I have not done these sins. I'm not repenting of things because I don't have anything to repent of. He's not making that argument at all. He turns and starts kind of accusing God of turning his eye on him and directing his wrath towards him, and putting God in this adversarial role. And it was at this point I started struggling with how to deal with Job right here, because up to this point the stuff he has said has been very true, but him not knowing the situation, not knowing the conversation that happened between God and Satan, Job doesn't realize exactly what's happening, but he is speaking as he does, and it is I am upright and blameless, a true statement, and God has decided to focus on me and punish me, and that's not fair. And that's where he kind of goes astray a little bit. And as I started looking into this week, I was really struggling with how to deal with Job in this, because I know from the book that Job is upright and blameless, and it's said multiple times, and that he talks about not denying the words of God. In verse 10 there, he says, I have not denied the words of the Holy One. And so reconciling some of the things he's saying, where he's very much like trying to make it him against God, and also knowing that he is called out as an upright and blameless man. And I was really struggling with putting those two things together. How can How can that be? How can he be both? How can he be called in the Bible upright and blameless, and then I see him say things in the Bible that are not true? I mean, he is lying. He's not doing it. He is saying what he believes to be true, for sure. But he's just wrong on this, and he goes on for quite a while with this being incorrect. And in talking about it, some wise words from my wife kind of got me thinking about a different thing, and he's a little bit like David in this circumstance. David is absolutely, in the Bible, called out as being a man after God's own heart, and is exemplified in a lot of ways. He is a good man to be mimicked, and if we strive to be like David, we'll get pretty far in life. Like that will be a good start towards following God. But at the same time, like there are some horrible things that David did, and we know those things. We know he did them, and he had to repent of that. And one psalm of David's in particular kind of struck to me as lining up with what Job is saying here, as he's really questioning God, and really some things that maybe aren't 100% accurate about God is being said, but he is still being a man after God's own heart. And so if you would look at Psalm 13, David writes, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Light up my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death, lest my enemy say, I have prevailed over him, lest my foes rejoice, because I am shaken." And so David is lamenting too, and he's asking a lot of questions of God. And he's talking about God has abandoned him, or is giving David over to his enemies, and that's not right. That's not fair. David hasn't done something in this instance. There's other laments later where he is repenting, but there's not something right here where he's repenting and seeing this as a punishment from God. It's just, why haven't you rescued me yet? Why are you allowing these things to happen to me? And we'll come back to this psalm, but I think that really lines up a little bit with what Job is saying here. So as we go on, starting in verse 14 of Job 6, he finally turns back to his friends. So this first part was instead of responding to Eliphaz, is still lamenting to God a little bit. And so he starts talking to his friends directly here. It says, "He who withholds kindness from a friend forsakes the fear of the Almighty." And so now he's ready to turn it on his friends. He is not going to be holding back in this section. The very first words he says to them are that by not being kind to Job, that Eliphaz himself is forsaking the fear of the Almighty. And he goes on to say more about these friends. And again, in a really just beautiful part of poetry here, he talks about drought, right? Kind of paints the picture of caravans turn aside from their course, they go up into the waste and perish. Caravans of Tema look, and the travelers of Sheba hope. Caravans in Tema and Sheba would be, those are two kind of towns, villages, outposts in the desert. And so these caravans would have been traveling for quite a ways in the desert, which is not an easy travel. And so looking forward to getting there and being able to restock was a really good thing to look toward. But on that trip, Job would call what his friends are doing right here like a mirage of a river, where you're traveling in the desert, maybe don't have quite enough water, and you're really thirsty, a little dehydrated, needing some sustenance to go along, and you see this river up ahead, and it's like, oh, thank goodness, finally something to ease some of this sorrow, some of this difficulty. And you get to the river, and it's dried up. There's nothing there. And that is what these friends were for Job. He has people mourning with him who did a wonderful job. They are to be commended. Like, these friends sat with Job for 7 days in silence and just mourned with him. They weren't there like, Job, get your butt up right away. You can't, what are you doing? This is all brought on by you. You need to, they were great friends in that instance. And they look like this river of hope for Job, where at least one thing in his life, he's got these friends here who are mourning with him, who are there to comfort him. And then he gets to the river, and the friends actually finally speak, and the river is dry, and the friends' words are not comforting, are not kind, but they're accusatory, and they're lies, and it's backwards, it's wrong. And I think that was part of it, why the response is so harsh, because it wasn't just somebody coming and saying, hey, here's what's wrong with the situation, and then Job can just lean on his wisdom and understanding and be able to explain in a super rational way of, well, you say that's what's happening, but I haven't had these sins, and so that can't be it. And instead, he lashes out because it looked like this was going to be his comfort in this situation, and it was absolutely not. And it's going to continue to not be that for quite a while now. But I love that picture through poetry of Job getting to this river, traveling in the desert, and it letting him down once again. So as he continues to talk with them, he asks for an accusation. Tell me what I've done. If I have sinned, if I have a specific thing, as you keep saying this, I brought it on myself, tell me what it is, and I'll be quiet. I'll drop it. I'll let it go. And they can't do it. It says, how forceful are upright words, but what does reproof from you reprove? And he's saying, yeah, true words are convicting, are powerful, and they would stop him from lamenting. They would stop him from crying out against God. They would stop him from saying that he is the victim of this. If somebody would come at him with true words and say, this is what's happening, which later on is going to happen eventually. We will get there, and he kind of foreshadows that, where if true biblical words are what's said to him, that he'll drop it. He's a smart guy. He can understand. But what's coming at him is not that. It's not truth. It's not loving words trying to help him understand the situation. It's just accusations, and it's empty accusations. It's accusations of, oh, Job, you're a sinner. You're a terrible guy. And there's nothing behind it. He says, tell me what it was. I'll drop it. I'm done with it right here. And so he recognizes the truth of that, but he just isn't finding that from these friends, and so he's going to keep going on. So after this short little bit, he does finally address the friends, and immediately in chapter 7, he turns back to addressing God. He's like, okay, these guys have no true words for me. I'm just going to get back to my lament of God. And he talks about in chapter 7 that his life is compares himself to a hired hand or a slave laborer, and there's just empty days and nights and months, and he doesn't say days and nights, he said months and nights, and just how this will go on. He talks again about him going to die soon, and at this point, talking about dying again soon, it brings us back to what Nicholas preached on early on at Job's kind of first lament of this situation in wanting to die, and I think he said that all pretty clearly. But Job is still feeling all these things, and he has these feelings of just wishing it would be over, or he at the very least, if he's not wishing it to be over, he thinks it's going to be over soon. Like, he is in such sorrow and such pain. I mean, his physical state is horrible right now, and I think it's super ironic that he's going to go on to live for 140 years after this, because in this moment he is pretty sure his time on earth is drawing to an end. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle. Like that's to say how fast his life is going to be and how soon it will be over. His life is a breath my eye will never again see good. His life, whatever duration that there is left, is going to be bad for the rest of it. And so he's got plenty more things to say to God about how all of these troubles are here. And then he gets back to this. He gets back to this part of he's going to say all these things, and in verse 11 especially, it just caught me. He's so blatant about what he's doing and what he's going to do, and I mean there's not this remorse. Therefore I will not restrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. And so Job knows what he's doing here. Like it's not I will mount a defense, or I will defend my honor, or I will sing of the Lord's praises. He does those things at different parts, at different times. He does all of that. Job does, and that is why he continues to be called this person that we should look towards. But in this moment right here, it is just suffering, and he knows that he's going to complain. He's not going to restrain himself, and the reason for that is the bitterness of his soul. The suffering that he has gone through has drawn him to this lack of restraint, this rashness that he talks about earlier, and the complaining that he's going to do now. And so again, he gets back into this mentality of God versus me. Am I the sea or sea monster that you set a guard over me? You scare me with dreams and terrify me with visions. I would choose strangling and death rather than bones. Again, it's God against me, God against me. I would rather die than continue to suffer. And then in verse 17, says, "What is man that you make so much of him?" And I had to do a double take when I saw this. I'm like, what is man that you make so much of him? I know that, but I don't know it in this context. And sure enough, as I was thinking about Job and David, these words are very, very similar to some words of David's. And so Job's whole thing here, he says, "What is man that you make so much of him, that you set your heart on him, visit him every morning, and test him every moment?" And so he's asking this question of what is man, and he recognizes a biblical truth of man is unworthy of God's attention. We are so insignificant to him on the terms of power and ability and authority and inherent value that we are nothing to God. And so he says, what is man? Why would you focus on one human being? Why would you direct all of these horrible things on one man? You are so great and powerful. And he's speaking truth here, Job is, in recognizing God being so far greater than man. But the follow-up question to that is why would you focus on me? Why would you direct this against me? Why do you test me every morning? Or why is he there every morning and test him every moment? And David, in Psalm 8, asks the same question, but he goes at it in a slightly different way. And so he recognizes the same truth, rather. He recognizes the insignificance of man and the inherent value and the greatness of God. But instead of asking why God is testing him every moment, he says in Psalm 8, "What is man that you are mindful of him, and the son of man that you care for him? Yet you have made him a little lower than the heavenly beings and crowned him with glory and honor." And so these two great biblical men both realize the insignificance of man compared to the greatness, the sovereignty of God. But they do follow it up very differently with with I recognize this truth, and then why are you punishing me, versus how are you possibly lifting man up? David is asking, why would you let the Son of Man be, why would you care for the Son of Man, and why would you put us just lower than the heavenly beings and give us the authority from creation to subdue the earth? And we're not deserving of that. We would not be deserving of stuff later on that God gave us as well, and through that same recognition of insignificance. But yeah, they come to different realizations here. Going a little bit further, Job says in verse 20, "If I sin, what do I do to you, you watcher of mankind? Why have you made me your mark? Why have I become a burden to you?" And at this moment, the tiniest bit of Job begins to turn, because everything up to this time has been him recognizing that he hasn't sinned, and recognizing that he is blameless, and so this is all just unfair. And just by a very simple change in his words to "if I sin," or some translate it as a question, "have I sinned?" And he now has opened up the possibility, okay, there is some stuff I don't know. Maybe I've sinned. He's still saying, "God, why are you punishing me? Why are you putting this on me? And why haven't," goes on, "why do you not pardon my transgression?" And so he allows that there is some sin perhaps, and again, it's going to take him a while to get to this better understanding that we are fortunate enough to get to read about and not experience and live through. But he is starting to understand a little bit of, okay, maybe he doesn't know 100% of what is going on. Maybe he has sinned. And so he still has questions for God. He still has lots more to say, and he will have lots more to say before God answers him. But he just has this subtle change to, okay, I don't know everything. I'm willing to admit that maybe I have sinned. Then we get to Job's final words before Bildad is going to speak up in the next chapter. And in verse 21, he says, "Why do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity?" In the second half of that, he says, "For now I shall lie in the earth. You will seek me, but I shall not be." I got kind of upset the first time I read this. I'm like, this sounds like the little kid of the "take my ball and go home" thing. It's like, okay, God, you're doing all this against me. I'm going to die soon. Well, you know what? Soon I'm going to be dead. You're going to seek me. You got this focus on me every day, every morning, every moment. You're punishing me every moment of my life right now. Well, you know what? I'm going to be dead soon. Who are you going to punish? Not going to have anybody to go after when that happens. Yeah, how about that, God? I'll not be anymore. You can seek me. I won't be there. I'm going to be dead. And reading that is how I had that first question of that seems like such a bad attitude, and I didn't know how to say this sermon and say Job is wrong here. He's blatantly wrong. And I read Job is upright and blameless. And then I read Job say, "Well, I'll be dead soon, so you can't bother me anymore." And how do you reconcile that? I don't understand it. I'm not saying, oh, I'm better than Job, because I would never say that. I know I'm not better than Job, because I would say something like that, and I know I'd be wrong in doing that. But how do we call him this upright, blameless guy that should be emulated in suffering? And again, we go to the end of that Psalm 13, finishing it after David has said all of these things. Lord, will you forget me forever? I have sorrow in my heart all the day. He's saying similar things of God, you're not here, or you're punishing me and I don't deserve to be punished. And let my enemies say I've prevailed over him. Let my foes rejoice because I am shaken. And then this is a psalm. So David had the opportunity to put all of his thoughts together over time, put it together as a song, and sing it as a psalm, as something meant for worship later on. And so this is not necessarily David's immediate thought process. This could have been done over an amount of time. I have no idea how long exactly, but he has the possibility of that. It could have been a little bit of time. And so he has those thoughts of asking God these questions of, why me? Why am I suffering? Why are you not here with me? Why are you not defending me from my enemies? And as much as accusing God. But with the benefit of time, David's able to come to the realization as he ends that psalm, but I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. And he has that change of heart. And not even a change of heart, just he has an answer to his own question of, all these things are happening, this doesn't seem right, but I trust your steadfast love. And so, with the benefit of time, he can come to that realization and that recognition that, okay, all this stuff is happening, but I know biblical truth. I know that God is steadfast. I know that he loves me. I know he's not my adversary, and so I will trust in him. I will wait on him to deliver me from my enemies. And he'll just, and I'll continue to sing to the Lord. And I'll do that because he has dealt bountifully with me. And the Lord has done those same things with Job. He has blessed Job so much. And in time, Job is going to understand those things. And so there doesn't need to be a thing of reconciling, oh, Job is either upright and blameless, or Job is a liar who's accusing God of terrible things that God's not actually doing. Job is a human. Job is a human who knows things about God and knows truth about God, and that's what we need to do. We need to know biblical truth. We need to know God's heart towards mankind, and we should recognize what is man. We should be asking ourselves that question: why, God, do you focus on us? Why do you care about us? We don't deserve it. We are absolutely undeserving of any attention that God gives us. But if we know that biblical truth, we know God's promises, we know his character and who he is, that in asking that question of, why do you focus on us, we're so insignificant, whether you're asking, why do you focus on me and I'm suffering, or why do you focus on me and how can you be raising me up in this situation because I don't deserve it? Either way that you're asking that question, if you have that truth of this is who God is, and deserving it or not, it is given to us by God, and he has elevated us more than we deserve. He has given us so many things that we don't deserve. And we remember those things. We remember what God has given us, what God has done for us, and by holding on to that in all situations, through the benefit of time, maybe we'll have some of those questions, and right in the moment you might say something rash, and you might say something that you have to repent for later. But you can still live a godly life as a sinner who asks questions of God, so long as you have that foundation of biblical truth and understanding of who God is and what he cares about and how much he will provide for all of us. This morning we will remember one more of those biblical truths and one more of those things that we are super undeserving of. I'm going to invite Michael Gallagher up. And we remember the table. We remember that as insignificant as we are, and as much as we do not deserve anything that God has given us, He has given it to us all the same. And so, I would ask anyone who has received that gift from God. This is not Commonplace's table. This is the Lord's table. And so, if you have received that gift of salvation through Christ's sacrifice for us, I would invite you to come forward and remember that sacrifice with us, please.